hints at what we're going to do through the course of the evening, but if we could all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, I'd appreciate it.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. All right, the idea of the evening is to have conversation, to have question and answer period. I'm going to give you a brief overview. I will introduce County Executive. County Executive will give you a brief overview, and then we'll turn it over to Commissioner Geary from DPW, and Commissioner Geary will then be able to give the DPW overview, and then we'll take questions. When you have a question, I would ask one thing, that you come up to the mic over there. There's not a lot of people in here, but the mic is for the reason of so everybody can hear you. Some of us are older than others, and we would like to be able to hear all the questions. So if you could do that, that would be greatly appreciated. Again, we're here to give an overview of what we are. 2 years ago, I ran for county legislature in this district, and I had a lot of questions. I will tell you that the learning curve is extensive, very, very extensive. And it's easy to think, well, why don't we just, back a pickup truck and a shovel and go shovel out the dirt at Como Lake. I will tell you that there are a lot of things that take place, a lot of coordination. And I was being interviewed the other day, and they asked, why so much coordination and everything? Well, quite frankly, the fact that we did coordinate everything and we're repurposing, and we'll get into, Bill will get into his talk, I don't want to steal his thunder, but we're repurposing the stone that we're building the dam and the roads in there, in the lake, to be able to make sure that the water is off to one side, and then cleaning it out, and then the water will go to the other side, and then cleaning it out, and then they're going to repurpose that into the bank stabilization, which will be even more efficient down the road, that the sides, the silt will not come back as quickly. All of that coordination takes what could have been a $2 million project and turns it into a $480,000 project. So sometimes patience is a virtue. I'm not blessed with it, but I will tell you point blank that I have learned that there are reasons why things take longer than we want. And the idea of tonight is to actually inform you of where we're going forward. The growth in Lancaster has been, everyone knows, those situations. That's long before I got here. Most of those projects were signed off long before Mark got here, okay? So we need to have some sort of a solution for roads, and we've talked about that. We've had numerous meetings to get reasonable solutions for the people that we represent. And with that said, I'll take questions later too, but with that, I'd like to introduce our County Executive, Mark Poloncarz.
Thanks, Sean. Good evening. I appreciate everyone coming here tonight to the beautiful Lancaster Opera House and Lancaster Town Hall. I want to thank the Opera House for hosting us, and those gentlemen upstairs who's doing the audio. Thank you for taking time out of your busy day. As well as we have some representatives from the town of Lancaster here. Of course, our supervisor, Johanna Coleman. Thank you for being here. Councilmember Ronald Rufino is here. Thank you. There's others from various municipalities. If I don't identify you, I'm sorry. But we really just are here to talk about the issues that matter in our community, in our county, and what we're doing in Erie County to address them. We are joined by, of course, our Commissioner of Public Works, Bill Geary. Bill has a presentation that will go through a lot of the investment that we're doing in infrastructure. But to back up on a little of what Legislator Russo was talking about, when people were saying, hey, we want you to go out there and fix Como Lake, dredge it, we need it done right now. So that's going to get done. It's just not an easy process. Erie County government, the park is owned by the Parks Department. It could not do it on its own. It also needed the approval from the federal government through the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, because anytime you touch a waterway, you got to involve the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and New York State through the Department of Environmental Conservation. Here's a perfect example of one project, not a huge project in the grand scheme of things, but an important project to the people in the town of Lancaster, the village of Lancaster, that touches every level of government: local government, county government, state government, and federal government. And it sometimes, as the legislator noted, it takes a while to get these projects done, but because of how we were able to work together as a county with the Department of Public Works, working with the Department of Parks, we were able to come up with a plan to address it, to do it in a manner that made it cost effective. Legislator noted that this could have easily been a $2 million project. We had assistance offered by the town and the villages to assist us in trying to make it happen, and he said, well, if we need it, we'll take you up on it, but right now we're trying to just get this project moving so that we can do it and it's cost effective. And that's what's happening, because as you probably all know, this week the dredging of Como Lake began. We wanted to start it last year. There's something you can't control in government: the weather. We know what happened last fall. It was a very rainy fall. And then we hoped to get it going earlier this year, but we didn't, because we were backed up because we had a very rainy spring. And they were utilizing the staff and equipment from the Public Works Department, so our entire schedule got pushed back about a month and a half, just because of the rain. So it started later than we wanted. We hoped to have started it last year. We didn't, because we had the bad fall weather. We hoped to have started earlier this year. It didn't, because of the bad spring weather, but it started. It's going to get done. It's going to get done. And the Commissioner will talk a little bit more about the timeline of that project, as well as Erie County's investment. We invest a lot of money in our various departments. Erie County government is very large. As a government, it has a $1.7 billion budget. But the vast majority of that, 90%, goes for mandated expenses, like costs associated with Medicaid, costs associated with temporary assistance for needy families, costs associated with what is now called the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP, more commonly known as food stamps. That money comes into county government from the federal and state government, and we're a pass-through. We're the ones who administer the program. We have the employees that take the applications, make certain that people qualify. But the vast majority of money that comes into county government goes for those programs. What everyone assumes is county government, which is the roads, the parks, the libraries, the emergency services, the county executive, the legislature, that's all in basically 10% of our budget. So we're left with trying to fund the vast majority of what people assume is county government in the smaller, very small portion of the pie, the 10%, while the mandated expenses are those that run up the vast majority of our costs. And those costs are going up. They're going up this year. We have additional mandates from New York State government with regards to bail reform, which is going to require us to hire more probation officers. We have additional mandates with regards to discovery reform for trials, which is going to require us to probably hire more individuals in our crime prevention lab. You know CSI, you watch those television shows? Well, Erie County has the CSI lab. But under the new rules from New York State, we have a certain requirement where now we have to provide that information to the defense counsel within 14 days of arraignment, where beforehand it may have been 6 months. And so those are new mandates that came down from New York State this year. We're going to probably have to buy more equipment, as well as hire some more individuals to do the actual analysis to determine what the drug was, the gun firing, where they fire it, determine ballistics. So that is all part of the mandates that came down from New York State we have to do, but did they give us money to do it? No. So now we are responsible for the costs associated with it. So that's all part of how we end up with 90% of our budget is for mandated expenses and 10% is for what everyone assumes is county government. And that is, of course, the infrastructure. You hear a lot about infrastructure from our commissioner. We'll then certainly open it up to questions and certainly have a civil discussion on the issues. But when it comes to infrastructure, and I know a few of you in the audience know this, I brought this up before, Erie County has one of the largest inventories of roads in infrastructure. We actually have 1,200 centerline miles of roads. There's 2,400 lane miles at least, and there's some roads that have more than 2 lanes. So we have 2,400 lane miles, 1,200 center line miles. That's actually greater than 3 states have in total. States of Rhode Island, states of Delaware, and Hawaii each have in total, between their municipal roads, their state roads, the federal roads that are in the entire state, less roads than Erie County owns and controls. So we have this huge road inventory, which is much larger than most other counties in New York State. Most counties are in the 400 mile or 1,200 mile. Happened many years ago as a result of the Board of Supervisors back in the early 60s transferring a lot of roads when the Board of Supervisors were going out of business to Erie County. Roads that used to be owned by towns, used to be owned by villages. We do not own a single mile of road in the city of Buffalo. I've often heard folks say, you're always repairing roads in the city of Buffalo. I live in the city of Buffalo. If you drive in the city of Buffalo, you'll know there's no roads that are getting repaired in the city of Buffalo, or very few of them. And there's none that are being done by the county because we don't own any roads in the city of Buffalo. All our roads are primarily in the suburban towns and the rural areas. There's a couple miles of road in the city of Lackawanna. There's a few miles of road in the city of Tonawanda, but it's all the suburbs and the rural areas where we have that 1,200 centerline miles of roads. Erie County's population is actually greater than 5 states. Population is greater than the state of Vermont, the states of Wyoming, North Dakota, South Dakota, Alaska. I missed one. Wyoming, North Dakota, South Dakota, Alaska, and Vermont, 5 states. So, and it's urban, suburban, and rural. So it's like a small state. And it feels like it when you got 1,200 centerline miles of roads you got to repair. And you've got a little more than 920,000 population that's spread out in the urban, suburban, and rural. And everybody matters. We try to provide services as best as we can within the budgetary constraints we have to each and every one of our citizens, because each and every one of our citizens are our bosses. The people of Erie County are our bosses in county government. And so we're here to work and serve you. We do have, as noted, in any government, we have limited amount of revenue because we work under a tax cap system. I'm very proud in my administration. We've never had a budget that went over the tax cap. We've been able to reduce the tax rate. It's now the lowest it's been in nearly 20 years. So not only have we not had tax rates going up like you see in other municipalities, and we've certainly not had the tax cap vote like you see in other municipalities, the vote of the tax cap, we've kept it at the tax cap amount. That means we're constrained on the amount of revenue that will come in on an annual basis. When it comes to our revenue, we primarily derive most of our revenue from the sales tax. It's not the property tax. Erie County has one of the lowest property tax rates in New York State for our county. And truthfully, compared to other municipalities, it's a lower rate than most other municipalities. But we generate most of our revenue from sales tax. But we don't keep all the sales tax that's generated. About 54% of the sales tax that's generated in Erie County that doesn't go to New York State. 8.75% is our sales tax. The first 4% goes to New York State. 4.75% after that comes to Erie County, but we don't keep it. We keep 54% of it. 46% of it, the remainder of the other amount, actually is shared between the cities, the towns, the villages, and the school districts. And nothing against supervisors, because I know you've done a very good job managing your budget, but I always love when a supervisor goes out there and they talk about how they've cut their tax levy, but they've increased their budget. And people are like, how can they do that? I say it's easy. They've generated more revenue in sales tax. So they're using the sales tax often. Lancaster hasn't done that, but I know a few towns have. Where they're like, hey, we've cut our tax levy. People are like, if you cut your tax levy, but you're increasing your revenue, your expenses because your budget went up, how are you doing it? Because they've gotten sales tax growth. On average, we get about 2.5% growth on an annual basis in sales tax. It's very helpful. If it wasn't for the sales tax being as strong as it is in our region, we would have a significant problem because we'd have to make a decision. Are we going to tremendously cut services? Remember, we only can cut from that portion that's the 10%. We can't cut from the 90% that's mandated. So the services that would be cut would be roads, libraries, parks, the things that people want out of their government. So we've been able to manage our budget, do it in a fiscally prudent manner. We reduced the county's debt by about 25% since 2012. It was about $400 million. It's about $300 million right now. And the proposal that we just passed to our capital budget committee yesterday, which Legislator Russo was on, actually will continue to reduce the debt by about a couple $1 million. So I'm very proud that we're continuing to reduce the county's debt and get it to a manageable amount where it's nice compared to what we're seeing elsewhere in the federal government where the debt just is skyrocketing. We've been able to reduce the debt, and we're going to keep it that way. We're going to ensure that we have the strongest finances we possibly can, because we've got a lot of work to do in our community. And with that, it's my pleasure to introduce our Commissioner of the Department of Public Works, William Geary Jr. Commissioner Geary previously worked many moons ago for the town of Seneca. He became a district engineer running one of our highway districts in Erie County. I had the pleasure to elevate him to be the Deputy Commissioner of the Department of Public Works for Highways under the former leadership of Commissioner John Lafredo. And then when John Lafredo retired, it was my pleasure to bring Commissioner Geary into the position of Commissioner. Commissioner Geary is also not just someone who represents our county as the Commissioner, he also represents our country as he is the member of the U.S. Air Force Reserves out of the Reserve Air Force Base in Niagara Falls, and just came back after a multi-month deployment in which he was learning to fly blue planes. So we're glad to have him back. There's a lot of work. So Commissioner Geary, the floor is all yours.
Good evening. And just a little caveat on that. I'm glad to be back. Right down the street, as a young kid, my uncle owned Lancaster Blueprint. So I got a lot of family here in Lancaster. And ironically, he lived right across the street from the lake that Legislator Russo and everybody else in this community is probably very proud to see the dredging. And I remember being young, going over there skating and enjoying everything. So world comes full circle. So again, our Department of Public Works, as the county executive, told you, we have a huge horizontal infrastructure. Our assets of over 1,200 centerline miles of road, but we also have a buildings and grounds, a fleet, and weights and measures, but I think weights and measures might be coming to a consumer protection type agency. So over the last 7 years, we've gone over $100 million in building the infrastructure. Our portfolio of bridges, roads is second to none in the state, and bigger. We're a mini state within a state. But when we get into our buildings, most people don't realize some of the assets that we also maintain on the building side. The Botanical Gardens in 1901, very famous time. Back, a couple presidents were here, and one unfortunately was assassinated. But we have the Botanical Gardens. We're going through an extensive growth with the Society for the Botanical Gardens. We've committed to investing $2.5 million into a grand master plan to transform the Botanical Gardens into a destination. It's already worldly renowned. There's not many of these Botanical Gardens within the country, within one of the cities. We also have the Convention Center. Obviously, this has been a highlight of a lot of debate recently. Our original Convention Center that was originally owned by the City of Buffalo was built when there was only one hotel down in downtown Buffalo, two hotels. So the big link factor to draw convention business to the Buffalo region was bed space. Obviously, with the resurgence in the City of Buffalo, we now, up near where the current convention center is, have over 1,000 beds. The Westing's put up a brand new hotel. There's the Chippewa district, the entertainment district, the business district, and the financial sector, and then also everything that's been happening at Canal side. So the mandate's out there. We need to do something. We're still doing a few studies, but we got to stay in the convention business. 86% of the people that responded to our surveys want us to stay in the convention business. And we're not going to be in the convention business to compete with the Las Vegas and Orlando's of the world. But in our market space, we're competing against some cities up in Michigan, Ohio, and bringing in multiple conventions is really what we need to do. Massive 4,000 or 5,000 person conventions are not what we're after. It's being able to host multiple events and even dinners and weddings at the same time of a smaller convention of 1,000 or less. That's where the market's going with the convention business. New Era Field, another one. It's another one of our vertical assets. We're entering year 7 right now for the lease. We have a 10-year lease working. The Gulas have been great partners of ours. They've invested over $15 million just in the last 2 years. The investments that they made are now county property. So even if Gula ownership or anything was to change, that still remains the taxpayers' property with the new Science Research Center that they just opened this April. Last year, we reconfigured all the suites, what used to be the Jim Kelly Club and Van Miller. That was all done. And the Bills have some great ideas of trying to use this facility more than just maybe 8 games a year, or 10 if you include some of the preseason games, and hopefully we get into the playoffs and we can play deeper into January. But using some of this space also for wedding venues and stuff like that. We just finished about $5 million worth of work, brand new field. This picture here is the logo you'll see on if you watch Bills tonight. It's a little bit bigger than it was in years past, but it's a great facility and a lot to bring in when we have about 100,000 people on game day, outside and inside the stadium. Erie County Community College, we have 3 campuses. All those fall under public works, all those buildings. We built a brand new STEM center. We just got LEED Gold certified for this the STEM, Science, Technology, Engineering, and Math Center that's at the North Campus. The North Campus, there's a lot of competition among community colleges. This we really think is going to be a catalyst to keep bringing people from within our area, but maybe attracting others from other counties as well. And of course, Old County Hall, that was the White House for a short period of time. President McKinley laid in state in there. Anybody's been there, it's a beautiful building. Behind it on Delaware side, we've also have the new County Hall. The 2 are joined. We did a massive restoration in there in the early 2012, 2013. And then you can see the casino down at Chestnut Ridge, another beautiful building. In all, we have managed in the public works about 220 buildings across Erie County and within the city and within all the suburbs. The roads, this is 280 bridges. This is a fact, when we talk about 280 bridges, these bridges are greater than 20 feet. If you include anything that's 5 foot but less than 20 feet, we have about 490 bridges. But the 280 are what are considered a major bridge. 467 culverts, 1,180 centerline miles of road, and there you have the facts as well with the states. One of the big things with the bridges is we just built a couple, I think 3 bridges in 2017. We're going to build another one next year up in Amherst. 100% county funded because the state doesn't have we didn't have state aid with that, and our federal program is expiring September 31st of this year. The FAST Act was the last 4-year plan on the Transportation Improvement Plan. Currently on the forecast, we have some stuff on the new federal aid that'll be the next 5 years, and we can talk about some of those projects, but that still has not been settled in the federal government as far as what dollar amount that's going to be and what it's going to be called, if it's going to be a FAST Act. There's finally just recently been some talk in both the Senate and the House of what that plan is going to look like. But the majority of our infrastructure was built in the 50s and 60s, so we're well past the useful life. And as we keep putting off projects, they get more and more expensive. And of the 280 bridges, I'm faced with about 45 bridges I need to build in the next 10 years. So that's $90 million just in bridges. And driving down the road, I can pave 10 to 20 miles of road for $2 million. Drive over a bridge that's 150 feet long, that's $2 million. It goes quick. And but it's a great way to put people to work, a great way to spend money off into the community. Every $3 for every dollar we spend in infrastructure, it generates 3 in the local economy. Goodrich Road, that was a huge project for us. It was a big undertaking when the boss came in. We told him about some of the challenges we wanted to do on that. If anybody knows, in this county we have probably one of the most diverse counties as well. Up in the northern part it's very flat. We have a very hard time with draining water off or even moving water. While in the southern half, we have a hard time slowing water down. Goodrich Road is literally built through a swamp. We have some very, very, very challenging soil conditions, almost quicksand-like with some of the clays that are up there. That project, we're happy to get done with it and be able to make it successful for the north. And it's a major thoroughfare now, and you're starting to see this, and I know Lancaster especially sees this. Everyone's frustrated with Transit Road, so no one wants to drive Transit Road. And what used to be considered a collector road that, linking towns and villages together that were county roads are now becoming the primary route. They're undersized and overutilized. So our mission and our challenge going forward is trying to meet the needs of these communities. And like I said, Lancaster is a prime example of that. In 2012, this is just a timeline of some of the road work we've done since 2012 with our highways and bridge projects, and we have dollar amounts there, what we spent to get over the $100 million in investment. But we've touched just about every road in our inventory, and we rely a lot on some of our state aid that comes in. Almost 25% of our programs through the CHIPS, the Consolidated Highway Improvement Program. I see Danny out there, your highway superintendent. The CHIPS is a lifeblood of most highway departments, and the county's not any different. One of the things that we have with that, though, is once I pave a road and I use state aid like that, CHIPS, I can't touch that for 10 years again to get that dollar for dollar match. So some people are always like, well, you did something, and when we do a pavement program, we're hoping to get 10 to 15 years of life. But again, with population shifts and different avenues, some of those pavements we're stretching it to get 9 years. In order to get 100% reimbursement, we can't touch it until year 10. There's limitations. I sit on a county legislative committee where we go back and forth to Albany quite a bit and work with the state DOT in Albany and some of our state delegation to try and change some of these rules, because in the infrastructure world, again, this stuff was built in the 50s and 60s, and we're still under some of the rules and regulations of the 50s and 60s, and not only has the infrastructure lived past its useful life, so has that legislation. So for the big undertakings, and 2019, this has been a great program. We keep challenging ourselves, so we get it from the county executive, the legislature, asking us to take on more, do more. We've come out with some outside-the-box thinking as far as how we can repurpose dollars, so through some of our procurement processes, but also partnering with our communities, the towns. Sometimes some of the towns have a bigger highway department than the county does. They may even have a specialized piece of equipment that the county doesn't. So what I think everybody that invests or pays taxes wants to see that utilized in an efficient way. So when we partner together on projects, it's a win for everybody. Just in this case alone, in 2019, our in-house staff is paving almost 30 miles internally. In the years past, we would do maybe 8 to 10 miles. But we've been able to add some workforce and again, blend some of our workforce with the other communities. So we've taken those paving crews, still doing some pavement preservation, and at the same time being able to put new driveway pipes in for the new homes that are hopefully going on our roads. Huge project and a big undertaking again was taking the Bethlehem Steel site, and there was a big vision to see these brownfields turn into productive and economic generators. So in public works, you don't think of it as economic development, but truthfully, if a road is not suitable, what incentive does a business have? In this case, we built a brand new street. I thought we were out of building a brand new road in our inventory, but this made the most sense, opening up over 150 acres of land and brownfield credits. And I think recently there was one company that just signed that's going to be going in there. This road, the picture on the right, it shows we have the top course of asphalt going down next week, and the signal poles is the only thing we're waiting on. We can't dedicate the street until we have an operable signal at Route 5 and Donut Street. We'll have those in the beginning of September, and hopefully turn the switch on September 27th, and the business park will be open, and we got a tenant coming in, hopefully many more. With that, that's in a nutshell where we're at. I know in the Lancaster area, just since 2012, there's been a lot of projects, and I'm sure there's one that everybody out here wants to hear about or wants to get some information on with William Street. But just to give you an overview of what we've invested in this community within our infrastructure, which you guys use on a daily basis. We want to have the input from the public to develop our infrastructure to help meet the needs, not only of the community, but everybody that lives on it. So since 2012, we've had about $14.5 million. We own about 40 miles of road within